Hello and welcome to this presentation, which will focus on the clinical input into SNOMED CT content development. We will cover 5 areas in this presentation: looking at how clinical input is incorporated, clinical reference groups, a discussion on the approach SNOMED International is taking to clinical engagement, some case studies or common questions, and lastly, some practical advice on the creation of a topic-based group. SNOMED CT continues to develop in response to the changing needs of healthcare. This includes the addition of new content and also the revision of existing content. So let's start with a discussion about how you as a clinician can improve SNOMED CT. This graphic provides an overview of the 2 main options: contributing as an individual on the left, or as part of a group on the right. Requests for change may come directly from clinicians. In member countries or territories, these requests are submitted by content request systems, while in non-member countries, clinicians will use info@snomed.org. More information on individual contributions will be provided in the slides that follow. In addition, SNOMED International supports clinical reference groups and clinical project groups. The details of these groups will be covered in later slides. However, the groups can work on specific clinical topic areas and make submissions directly from the group. In summary, it doesn't matter if you're an individual or part of a group. In both cases, you are contributing to the development of SNOMED CT. So why is it important for clinicians to be involved in SNOMED CT content development? First and foremost, it's a fact that clinical practice continues to change and evolve over time. Due to the scope of coverage of SNOMED CT, SNOMED International is reliant on clinicians informing them of the changes required in SNOMED CT. This includes where new content is required or existing content is no longer applicable. More and more, clinical specialties are reviewing the terminology requirements of their own specialties and formulating advice on best practice. This level of detail is essential to inform SNOMED CT development and is also a mechanism for the specialty to improve the opportunities for implementing best practices in the area of terminology. This practice will then ensure that clinicians have access to up-to-date terminology, which is clearly required in an electronic health record system. Requests may include new concepts or for the addition of new descriptions to aid clinician usage of SNOMED CT. The available descriptions or terms in SNOMED CT should support ease of use for clinicians by including synonyms if applicable to support successful implementation. Note that there are limitations to the addition of acceptable synonyms in SNOMED CT. Established editorial guidelines provide some framework for what is acceptable. As an individual, clinicians can make a request for change via 2 main routes. SNOMED member countries have established their own content request systems, and requests can be made directly to the member's National Release Center, or NRC. These changes are reviewed, and if the request has international credibility, the request will be passed on directly to the SNOMED International authoring team. This provides a more streamlined way of managing clarifications. Where the request reflects national requirements, these can be actioned by the NRC, and changes made to the national SNOMED extension. When a clinician is in a non-member country, or the member country does not have a request submission process, requests should be forwarded to info@snomed.org. So what to do when you as an individual have a request for new content in SNOMED CT? To advise on the process, the flowchart you see here takes you through the steps. It should be noted that the critical aspect is to document your requirements. This includes the concept or term change, but also includes the reason for the request, evidence if available, and an explanation of the intended use. These are essential to aid the author in understanding the requests and modeling the required changes in SNOMED CT. Next, the requester must determine their member status and take the appropriate path. Non-members are advised to email info@snowmed.org with the details of their request. The simplified process you see on this slide is used for requests to add subsets. Once again, documentation is critical, and there will be a determination on whether the requirement warrants international inclusion. If the request is made for an international subset, the requirement can be raised with a clinical reference group or emailed to info@snowmed.org. Either way, SNOMED International will review the requirement for international inclusion. This may result in approval or a case where the requester is asked to forward their requirements to the National Release Center. The model that SNOMED International has adopted for engaging with clinical specialty groups are the clinical reference groups, or CRGs. The expected flow of requirements travels from clinical communities through CRGs and into SNOMED CT, with the changes then visible to the clinical community when actioned. This continuous cycle is driven by the point we mentioned earlier, that clinical requirements are always evolving. SNOMED International has a number of CRGs already in existence and is committed to supporting the formation of new groups where there is a clear requirement to do so. In addition to CRGs, there are also specific clinical project groups and editorial groups, and we'll explore the role of these groups in the slides that follow. Lastly, SNOMED International has a clinical coordination group within the CSRM team. This group is responsible for communication and coordination based on an overall view of organizational priorities and knowledge of resources available. CRGs are created to facilitate discussion between clinicians focused on specific clinical specialties or topic areas. The aim is to provide a platform for clinicians to discuss with colleagues any questions, issues, and experience relating to SNOMED CT and its implementation. The group promotes discussion which takes global considerations into account. Each group has a dedicated Confluence site, which provides a web-based meeting place to support discussion and documentation. These sites are open and transparent, which means that anyone can view them, irrespective of whether they are a member of the group. However, to take part in discussions, you require a Confluence account, in the same way that a web-based blog will not let you post anonymously. The groups are open to all and are not limited to just clinicians from the specialty area. In fact, we actively encourage this to broaden the discussion topics. And as you saw on the previous slide, within the CRGs, we might have project and editorial groups. We'll have more on these groups in a few moments. What does SNOMED International expect from clinical reference groups? The approach of using CRGs provides a framework, but we expect the groups to facilitate multidisciplinary topic discussion, working across all professions, with access to the required expertise to support the discussions. For example, the Cancer Synoptic CRG might consult the Pathology CRG. CRGs also provide flexibility over the level of engagement from simple discussions to regular meetings to focus on specific topic areas. Confluence supports sharing discussion topics over multiple groups where required. For example, a CRG might want to consult a group focused on implementation to ensure that products are developed that can be implemented within systems. However, one of the main benefits from the perspective of SNOMED International is the early identification of global changes to healthcare delivery at a specialty level, where the requirements can be discussed and agreed, and suitable change requests made. In addition to CRGs, SNOMED International also supports project groups and editorial groups. Project groups are formed as task and finish groups focused on a specific topic, for example, content or derivative related. They are formed of a small number of subject matter experts from the domain in question and invited to join on an individual basis based on the requirements of the project group. A group may include representation from other clinical specialty groups. The group meets at a frequency required to deliver the project. Editorial groups are formed from a small group of SMEs to oversee the maintenance of a specific derivative product. This may be a map or maybe a ref set or subset. The group is there to ensure the continued alignment of the SNOMED CT content with the clinical requirements for the product. The group will review all changes in the SNOMED CT release that have an impact on the product and make the necessary recommendations. This includes new content or inactivation of existing content. The frequency of meetings coincides with the release schedule for the SNOMED International release, for example, biannually or annually. SNOMED International has developed a clinical engagement strategy. The aims are to gather clinical input on future clinical developments by providing timely responses to clinical advances to ensure SNOMED CT content is available to the community when it is required. The clinical assurance of SNOMED CT should be provided by clinicians themselves, as they are best placed to advise on clinical requirements, and this includes the development and maintenance of derivative products. SNOMED International also aims to provide guidance in the form of educational materials and implementation support documentation. The overall aim is for the corporate culture of SNOMED International to be driven by a clinical culture for the benefits of clinicians using SNOMED CT. The key driver for the strategy is to support SNOMED CT being enhanced by clinicians to support current and future clinical practice. So how does SNOMED International intend to deliver on its clinical engagement strategy? First and foremost is the drive to raise the profile of SNOMED CT across clinical communities globally at all levels, including locally and nationally. To deliver on this, SNOMED International is looking to identify and support local, regional, national, and global healthcare professional ambassadors, as well as SNOMED CT clinical subject matter experts. We also aim to identify and gather use case examples from clinical and research perspectives to demonstrate the benefits of using SNOMED CT. SNOMED International continues to develop educational material to support clinicians to gain a greater understanding of SNOMED CT and its implementation. We identify clinical requirements, priorities, and trends that inform SNOMED International products, services, and other developments. We demonstrate the high-value clinical decision support capabilities of SNOMED CT. And last but not least, there is a continued focus on identifying interoperability opportunities, and specifically on identifying and supporting high-value use cases where clinicians can use the ontological nature of SNOMED CT to better enhance healthcare delivery and the understanding of disease and its treatment. The SNOMED International team has developed a clinical portal on Confluence, which provides access to all clinical aspects of SNOMED CT. The portal is completely open to all individuals, and we would recommend that clinicians explore the content using the URL provided. The site provides links to the individual CRGs, educational material, use case information, and other documents. On this slide, we have captured some of the frequently asked questions that we receive from individual clinicians. For example, how do I inform SNOMED International that there's a new concept required or a change to existing content? As we mentioned earlier in the presentation, either through a national release center within a member country or via info@snomed.org when an NRC is unavailable. How do I inform SNOMED International that there is a new term or description required or change to existing content? The process is the same as for an individual concept. And how do I inform SNOMED International that there is a concept, term, or description in SNOMED CT that is no longer clinically valid? Once again, the process is as previously described. How do I inform SNOMED International that there is a clinical error in SNOMED CT? In this case, please inform SNOMED International via info@snomed.org. In all the scenarios we just mentioned, it's crucially important to provide documented requirements and a detailed description of the issue. In the next few slides, we will provide some guidance for questions that often arise from clinical groups. For those with requirements but who are unsure of member status, please consult the members page at the link provided to determine your status. Members are directed to discuss with their NRC. If you are not in a member country, the requests will come through SNOMED International. On this slide, we have some additional requests for content which come from clinical groups. Incomplete hierarchies or clinical errors. Creation of a subset, and creating a map. In these specific cases, the route is always through info@snomed.org, unless the issue relates specifically to a national release, or you are in a member country and would benefit from discussing your requirements with a member of a national NRC. In all cases, please provide as much information as possible, and SNOMED International will coordinate discussion with the appropriate group and agree on a way forward. If you are interested in joining an existing CRG, please follow the URL on the screen to view the directory of existing groups. If you wish to join a group and want to take part in discussions, please apply for a Confluence account using the link provided and indicate which group you are interested in joining. Finally, if you feel that there is a need to support a specific specialty not yet in existence, please notify SNOMED International via info@snomed.org, who will then review your request and open dialogue to discuss a way forward. Clinicians may also wish to be proactive by reaching out to their own national or international clinical groups and propose a consolidated approach to SNOMED International on behalf of their specialty as a whole. That concludes the presentation. I hope you now have a better understanding of how you as a clinician can contribute to SNOMED CT and why it's important. For more information, please visit snomed.org, and thank you for listening.